Welcome back to the Personal Experience Podcast. My name is Jules Scott, and this week's episode is talking about being an empath. And there's no guest this week because I'm the empath, so I'm just going to do this one solo. Let's go, right? It's a little weird to do this way, but we're going to just roll with it because I have a lot of personal experience with this. I've been an empath all my life. I was born with it, so here we go. Let's talk about it. And let's kind of get through all of the little details when it comes to being an empath. But if you've been reading on social media this year, especially, there's been a lot of talk about empaths and empathic feelings and that kind of thing, especially recently, which is kind of what I wanted to inspire with this show and to talk about my experience about being an empath. But like, what is an empath? What the heck is this thing that I'm talking about? Because if you're not one, you don't really understand what this is, or maybe you are and you've never really known what it is that it is to be an empath. So there is a famous psychologist. Her name is Dr. Judith Orloff, and she's kind of the foremost expert on empaths and empathic feelings and behavior, and just learning what it is to be an empath. And so when I looked up what it was to be an empath, she's got 10 things that are really kind of the indicators. Empaths are highly sensitive, not like emotionally sensitive. You'll also hear empaths being referred to oftentimes as highly sensitive people. So very, very sensitive. Absorbing other people's emotions. Going to a large crowd is very overwhelming because if there's a lot of excitement in the air or a lot of dread in the air, boy, yeah, that's true. Many empaths are introverted. Yes, that's me. For sure. Highly intuitive and need alone time. Yes and yes. Empaths can become overwhelmed in intimate relationships, and empaths are targets for energy vampires. Empaths become replenished in nature, have highly tuned senses, and have huge hearts, but sometimes give too much. Does any of that sound familiar to you? I didn't really know what it was like to be an empath until I was probably in my 30s. I just knew that I felt different than a lot of other people. And I remember growing up when I was younger, I was one of those kids that was out there kind of just, I don't know, I was very emotional in a lot of ways. Cried very easily, laughed very easily. I was a performer. A lot of times I would just make up skits. And I remember making plays, like writing like little plays in the backyard with my friends. I remember doing skits. Like when I was 13 at my bat mitzvah, I wanted to do a performance, and I chose the song Because I'm a Dentist from Little Shop of Horrors to lip sync to this. And I recruited all my friends, and we just did this like skit / performance. I was 13 years old, and it was like, I when I was younger, they used to say that I was kind of a ham. I always wanted to be on the radio. I had, so I was super sensitive, but at the same time, I was also super emotional. I felt everything, and I expressed everything. And one of the things that happened to me as a child is I remember that specific behavior was really just kind of shamed out of me. It was a situation where you were like, you can't be so emotional. You got to tone it down. You got to back it off. And literally, like as an empath, like if I'm feeling something, when I was younger, it was just like I couldn't contain it. It was just like, it was just out there. And I remember having certain times where I just felt like I was being dissuaded, shamed, told that it was too much, that I was too much. And if you look at me now and you know me now, this may actually sound a little surprising to you, right? Like, that I am not really a ham anymore. I'm not a super performer. I'm not in everybody's faces, and I'm not the life of the party. And I actually do wonder how that childhood experience did shape the person obviously it did, but it shaped the person that I am today. But it didn't really help me understand it. That was the thing that I knew, is like, I just couldn't understand it. And somewhere in my 30s, I think, is when I started to actually understand why I was feeling certain ways that I did. Why I would want to go to a party, but then when I got home, I wanted to just sleep and just like, don't talk to me. I don't want to interact with anybody else, or because there was just so much. I was just like overwhelmed, sensory overload. I used to love to go to Vegas, and I would be so excited, and I'd get to Vegas, and it was just this energy that you get there. And then you spend a few days in Vegas and I would just feel this despair and negative, like downer feeling of like being pulled down. And I realized like I was actually absorbing the energy of the space that I was around. And that was just like, whoa, what is this? Why is this happening to me? And how do I do something about it? Because it's hard to understand it. One of the other times that I remember when I was younger, I have a really special connection with my dad. My dad and I are very synced. Like, there's a lot of times where like one is thinking of the other, and like the phone will ring, or they're going to send me a text, or I call him and he's like, I just thought of you. And I remember going to probably like 7 years ago, went to New York City. I went to visit my parents in New Jersey, and we were going to take a trip to New York to see the sights, go to the Statue of Liberty, go to the 9/11 memorial. And the situation that was happening was that we were going to take a bus from like the Central Jersey area that we were in to go to Grand Central Station. And my sister was going to join us at the time, but in a separate car. And my sister is like notoriously late for things. She just is. It's just her personality. And my father is like notoriously early. Like, he's the guy who shows up early, 15 minutes at least, and is completely stressed out before, like, if we're not at least 15 minutes early, there's like a massive amount of stress that he's got. And he just was freaking out that we were going to miss the bus because my sister was late. And I could just feel my body start to just like tighten and tense. And like it was like a rising of a bubble feel. I can't even describe it. It was like this rising energy in my chest that was pushing from my sternum up towards my neck. And I realized at that particular moment that I was actually picking up strongly my father's energy, and it wasn't my feeling, it was his feeling. And I was like, holy shit, this is really weird. And when you realize that, and you realize that there's a lot of energy that you're picking up from around other people, it can be very confusing to know what emotions are your own. And I think that's one of the biggest things about being an empath. Has been one of the struggles of my life, is what am I feeling, Jules Scott, and what am I picking up from around me in the world, in my proximity, reading social media? What is it that what am I getting? Where is it coming from, and how do I deal with it? I think that's probably been one of the hardest things and I still, to this day, it's 2020, August 25th is when I'm recording this. And I still struggle with this every single day. And especially now in 2020. In 2020 is the year, of course, where everything just completely goes to shit, and it's a complete level of anxiety, uncertainty, and unknown, and I'm frustrated and I'm angry, and I don't understand people who are lacking empathy for other people's situations and trying to put themselves and not trying to put themselves in other people's positions. And I just, it's like a constant state of distress. And like, how do you deal with that as an empath? How do you handle it? So I want to talk about some of these points that Dr. Orloff had put together and kind of talk about what I do and how I deal with it. So obviously I'm highly sensitive to things. I go to BlizzCon. I love it. It's amazing, but I have to take breaks. And that's also one of the points that Dr. Orloff has in here is I need alone time. I've had way too much alone time in 2020. Let me just put that there. It sucks. I mean, I'm missing a crucial piece of having connection with people, which is the other side of being an empath, is that you are so in tune with people and you need them. And I just, like, I've spent 6 months pretty much being on my own, physically. I mean, and I've had connections every day, all day with people online, but like, I can't even tell you the last time I got a hug. I don't know. And that really negatively affects me as well. So all of those things are like highly sensitive, need alone time. I was talking about BlizzCon. I would actually need to take breaks when I go to a convention where I'm around a lot of people for a long period of time. You'll see me like, I'll be out there for a good portion of the day. And then I need to like take a half an hour or an hour back in the hotel room. And whoever's with me at the time is just, they're kind of aware of this. Like I will just sit on the bed or lay down on the bed or get under the covers, something to cover me. And I don't want you to talk to me. I don't want you to, I just need to stop. I need it to just stop for a little bit. And then I get that time and I'm recharged and I can just pick myself up and go back out and do it again. But it is something that is very important to my body and my brain in order to be able to function, to be able to interact with people. Again, is to be able to get that recharge time so that I don't overload. Because when I overload, what happens is I just start shutting down and I can't process, and it's just feeling. And then it's like a meltdown. And so that's a big thing for an empath, is like knowing what your limits are and knowing what you are able to handle, and also like to not apologize for the fact that, you know, when it's not 2020 and you're not allowed to go out with other people, but like you could say no for those times where you're just not feeling it. You just don't. And hopefully you've got a crew of people who are understanding the fact, like, look, I just need a breather. It's not you. It's not you personally. I just need to get myself and my brain and the emotional reservoir emptied out so that I've got room for this to be able to be back in my life again. And that's a big thing that I've struggled with in my life. Excuse me. Is like the feeling of like not wanting to let somebody down, because of course, empath have a huge heart and sometimes give too much. So what I'll do is I'll just be like, oh, no, it's okay. I'll go hang out for sure. And then I'm miserable because I didn't have the time that I needed to be able to get rid of all of this. And so I'm just in that mode right now where I feel like I need to accept a little bit more about what empaths need and understand what they need, because I think we are living in a society right now where empaths are like, you know, looked at as what's the word? My brain is saying Pollyanna, but it's not that. It's more of like oh my gosh, you big wuss. That's like the thing. It's like empaths are kind of looked at like, can you just like muscle up a little bit? Can you just not be so emotional? Not be so emotional. Not be so over the top. Not feel everything and have to put it all out there. And I guess like I probably had those tendencies as a child, and it was worked out of me, where I'm a lot more I'm more passive when it comes to expressing my emotions to people I don't know. I'm also really reserved around other people because I'm very busy, like listening and assessing and trying to get what I'm feeling from the situation, which is great for me. It's great for the job that I do. It's great for like interacting with a bunch of people. I'm really good at my job, but it comes with a downside. Like, so I have had many people in my life call it my superpower, where I can just be able to talk to someone and I can read them and I can understand where they're coming from and I can just relate, because that's how my brain works. It's how my body works. I feel their energy. There's a downside to that though, because I feel everybody's energy. And in 2020, it's like this feeling of me seeing the world in a way that I've never seen it before. And this is probably the Pollyanna side of me. But I have never imagined that there is so much evil and hatred in people that I've seen this year. And maybe that is totally Pollyanna of me, or maybe it's a situation where it was always there and it's now become what they say. They're saying the quiet parts out loud now. And so because I surround myself with people who are like-minded and kind and empathetic and all of those wonderful things about the people that I know, it's like this moment where I've been like, what is going on and why is everybody so evil? And I know that's not true. I know that not everybody is evil, but it is very difficult in a world where we are going through a worldwide pandemic, an uprising of racial tensions and inequality, an election to change all elections, and a bazillion other things that have affected us. Like, I will read the news and I have to stop. But I can't stop. And that's the hardest part of all of this. So what have I done to try to get through all of this? Well, I eat. I think that's one of the biggest things, and probably the most damaging thing that I do to myself, is that I will use food as an emotional soother. And it's a reactive thing too. I'll use food as a celebratory thing. I'll use it as a comfort. I will use it as a connection, as a memory. It's food. And when the pandemic started and quarantine began, I had, I've struggled with my weight my entire life. It has not ever not been an issue. Like, it is my entire life. And I probably learned it at a very young age. I know I did. And so I've spent my entire life trying to fight my ability to just give in to the stuff that I want to eat. I'm not a binge eater. I don't, it's not an eating disorder or anything like that. It's just that I eat good, savory, sweet food, and I eat too much of it. And so I've spent my entire life trying to moderate that in different ways, and exercise and trying to learn how to eat better. And inevitably it always backslides and it goes back to where I was before. And when the pandemic started, I pretty much just said, screw this. I'm going to order takeout for everything I want every night of the week. And that's what I did for about 5 months. And I mean, let me just say, I know I'm not alone here. I know that there are a whole lot of people listening to this right now who are like, yep, raising your hand, going, yep, me too. Quarantine 15, join the club. Right. But I realized what I was doing, and I just like, I know what I'm doing. I know that I am suffering, and I'm using food to try to help me get through the suffering as a temporary dopamine hit to just take away some of the constant pain the constant negative energy, the constant dread. And so, it is still a constant struggle. Hello. But I'm trying to work on that now. Doing 2 weeks of a weight loss program. And the hard part is, like, I've sung this tale before. If you've been listening to my podcast for the last 8 years, you have heard me tell this tale. How many times? A lot. And the struggle that I have is that I just need to not give up on it, because I know that as an empath, it is the one thing that I cannot easily control. And so I need to find other ways to make myself handle the emotional toll that I'm taking on myself. Because what other things that I do when I'm trying to cope with stress and strain and anxiety is that I will throw myself into distractionable things like work to take away the constant nagging emotional hurt. And like when it's very hard for me to describe this, but I'll try my best. The thing that happens, like, if I'm alone and my brain is quiet and I'm stressed out or I'm just feeling the weight of the world, or I've been reading the news for an hour and I can't even understand what's happening, there's this weight in my chest that is very, very unavoidable. Like, you can't ignore it. It feels like a hole, but it's like a black hole of energy that is just sitting on me, and it aches. And it's there. It doesn't go away. And you just want it to stop. And like, I totally understand. I get how people turn to addictive behaviors, drugs, alcohol, sex, food, to try and avoid the feelings of pain and anxiety. I get it. Like, I can totally get it. And I have alcoholism in my family, and I've never felt that urge. I've never felt it. Thank goodness. Like, I'm just very grateful that I don't have that tendency, nor do I have the tendency towards drugs or promiscuous sex or anything like that. But for me, it's food. So it's because the energy has to go somewhere, right? It just has to be dealt with, or it stays there. But my little wonderful brain decides that I am going to just distract myself for the good chunk of time that I spend awake, so that I don't have to think about this. And so I will run myself into the ground so I don't have to think about it. And then I go to bed at night. And that is the time where my brain has stopped working on everything, or it's slowing down enough so that I don't have the distraction of whatever's around me. TV show, video game, friends, work stuff. And then I can't sleep. It's a terrible, stupid cycle. Let me just tell you, it sucks. And this is one of those things that I'm still working on. I've had many, many people talk to me about meditation, and I'm tough. Meditation is tough for me. It's very difficult because my brain is so trained to never stop. It just never slows down. And I'm grateful on the times where I can actually sleep through the night, because those are so rare. I will usually fall asleep in a complete exhaustion fit, and then I will wake up, and then it's just spin. So this is what it's like for me as an empath. The food thing is still a struggle, and I'm working through right now the feelings of, look, you've been down this road before, you've failed every single time. What is this time going to be? Is it going to be any different? And my answer to that is that it has to be, right? And so I'm trying to work on those feelings and to work on making sure that I'm not using food as the soother, as the thing that's going to stop my feeling of things. Sometimes I write. I've written. Sometimes I just I'll make an email draft in my personal email where I just not send it to anybody, and I just like free write whatever in my brain. That works. Sometimes, or at least it dumps it out of my head and puts it someplace else for a while so I don't have to deal with it. But the thing about when you're trying to deal with all of the energy that you have, and it's not necessarily your own, is to learn what it is that you are contributing to this and what is it that other people are contributing to it. And that's the point that Dr. Orloff talks about, being overwhelmed in intimate relationships. I mean, I'm a single girl. I was married. I'm not any longer. And I'm looking at my life at this point and have really decided that I don't need to have the traditional marriage, live together situation to be happy. And in fact, I'm probably happier doing the exact opposite, but still would like to have a partner that wants to share in my life, but is not kind of that traditional situation of living together, married, that kind of thing. It's a little bit harder to find because this is not the traditional thing. But I found that that's the thing that works best for me because it gives me my own space. It helps me, it allows me to have that alone time. And it also pushes me to find a partner where I don't need them to be my everything. And because this can go both ways, honestly. Like if you're a situation where you're feeling everything, right? You feel everything, you're overwhelmed, you just need to make it stop, that you just throw yourself into your partner and they become your center of the universe, and you focus on making sure that they're happy and sacrificing your own happiness on top of all of that. I've never really been that person. I've always been the person who just needed to make sure that I had my space too, in a relationship. But when I was really young and I was dating in my teenage years, I was the opposite. And I was the kind of girl who would just be so desperate to have someone in her life that I would give up my own self in order to do that. And I realized that, and after a while, and after a couple of really bad failures on that front, but now, honestly, I feel like as I'm dating now is a lot more healthy because I'm not in a situation where I feel like I desperately need somebody else in my life to feel whole. But that is sometimes the opposite too, is that I'm holding myself back on a lot of fronts to not necessarily try to connect as deeply as I might do because I'm afraid of being hurt. Because I've been really hurt by some really difficult people in my life, and I don't necessarily want to go down that road again. And you see yourself kind of going, whoa, walls, hi, let's put those up because you have the capability of hurting me. And when someone betrays my trust or hurts me unintentionally or intentionally, it's like this situation of just, it is a consuming thing. And it feels real bad. That just makes it light sounding, but it feels so bad, you guys. It just feels like the world is crashed. And I don't like that. I don't want that. I don't want to feel that way. So it is a tough navigation for me to connect with other people, especially in an intimate relationship. And it's funny because when I have conversations, like I'm on dating apps right now. I've been dating since the beginning of the year. Of course, I picked the worst possible year after 4 years of being divorced that I wanted to. My brain was like, yeah, I think it's time for you to look for somebody. So I'm out there using dating apps. And as I'm going through this process and swiping through now thousands of profiles, I'm sure. And I know pretty quickly, what is it going to be that makes the connection? Or who am I going to connect the most strongly with? And then I have to clear that hurdle. And then the next hurdle is, okay, they need to understand that this is not like, I'm not looking for a hookup here, because that is not how I operate. You need to know that sex and intimacy are two different things for me that are very, very like, one has to come before the other. Okay. The intimacy has to come before the sex. And let's just be real. There's a lot of people out there on dating apps that are looking for sex, and that's all well and good. But it's about being upfront. It's about being clear. It's about saying what you need and knowing what you need, which, now that I'm in my 40s, I'm much more comfortable doing, because I understand myself so much better. But I have to be so careful when I am going through all of this for dating, because Dr. Orloff also said empaths are targets for energy vampires. I am catnip for narcissists. I can't even tell you guys how many narcissists have come into my life and made it hell. And the problem with, being an empath and being super intuitive is like, you think that you've got somebody read. You think you've got them understood. You've picked them out. You see how they tick. But a narcissist pretty much takes an empath's ability and puts a signal scrambler on it, because they are exactly not what they are. It is the weirdest and most difficult and frustrating thing of my life, and is why I have gotten snowed over by a good handful in my life of narcissists. And I'm terrified of them. Like, I don't know if it is a narcissist that I'm dealing with or not, because really what happens is they reel you in and tell you all the things that you want them they want you to hear. And then they reveal their true face after you've already been hooked, or after your trust has been built, or after you've been feeling something, a good, strong connection. And of course, like, if I've built this good, strong connection, I have this tendency to be like, oh no, I can forgive that. And it's okay. I mean, it's all right. It was just a one-off or something like that. And that's how the narcissist works. So again, this is a struggle for me in my life to try to get away from. And I should clarify that energy vampires and narcissists are not necessarily the same thing, but a lot of times they are, or they just run hand in hand, because a narcissist is so self-focused that they're going to be taking all of you to take on what they need. And as an empath, you're like, yes, I care about you. You're my friend. You're my lover, whatever it is. And you're like, yes, let me give you everything I have. And suddenly if you're not careful, you're all of a sudden falling into a really terrible relationship situation where someone is just taking advantage of you and your kindness. And so I had one of these happen to me in 2018, I want to say. And it was kind of a work/friendship situation. I didn't realize it until it was too late. Well, not too late, but I didn't realize it until it was like, I am screwed, because I was contracting with this person, and when I went back and I kind of looked at the history of the how they behaved, I was like, duh, why didn't I catch this? But he was really good at not showing his true face until I angered him on something where I basically just didn't do what he wanted me to do, or I wouldn't give in to the thing that he wanted me to give into. And suddenly the true face came out, and I was like, oh, it's like, if you watch the show Lucifer, I don't know if you watch this show, and, in there, obviously Lucifer's the devil. That's pretty clear in the show. And he shows his devil face at some points in the show. And you're just like, okay. He's probably been telling me this whole time that he's the devil. And I just didn't choose to see it until he actually showed the face. And to my credit, I actually was like, as soon as I saw this, I was like, nope, I am out. And I just cut ties completely. And it was the best thing I could have done. And so those are the things that I've learned over time, is like, number one, trust your gut. Like, and it's tough as an empath because like as an empath, you're getting all of this information. You're feeling what you're feeling what they're feeling. And so you have to parse all of it and to make sure that you've understood what's actually there. But then you get like, as soon as you can kind of like see the signs and be like, oh, trust your gut, like that is something ain't right. Something is not right. I need to get out of this and, or I need to just back off. And so I'm glad that at this age, I'm more comfortable doing that. But at younger ages, I was not. So, I mean, energy vampires are all over the place. And like, you probably, if you're on social media at all, you know at least like 2 of these people and probably more. And I will say, I'll say this. Number 1, empath or not, an energy vampire is someone that's taking your energy from you to use for them. Whereas like I as an empath often give my energy to other people. So you'll see like people will say, oh, Jules, you're so nice. You're so kind. You're so caring. You give of yourself and all that type of thing. Well, it's like, yes, I do that, but it's not because it's just who I am. And for an energy vampire, that's who they are. So you have to decide when you're interacting with an energy vampire, if you have the ability to extract yourself from it. And sadly, a lot of times energy vampires are family members, close family members who are just like, it's like your mom, your sister, your brother-in-law, whatever. And it's a little harder to opt out of that for your own mental health. But to recognize that those energy vampires are the people who are just basically taking every breath of energy out of you. And when you leave them, you feel like you're an empty shell. Or you feel like you're worse for the wear after you've gone. Like, that is not worth your time. It's not worth your effort. Like, just don't. You don't need it. Because we have enough to deal with in our lives. And energy vampires need to go figure out how to get their energy from other things other than other people in a negative way. I get it from positive interactions with people. Just make me thrive. It's just the thing that I really, really enjoy, which is why I've been doing this work for so long, is that if I can give of myself to help other people, it energizes me and makes me feel whole. And then those moments where the darkness kind of comes in and that dark, heavy energy enters my chest, I have a moment of reprieve. I have a moment of peace. And that's kind of what I strive for every day. You know, I strive to feel whole, to feel like I have control over my emotions and that I'm not allowing external energy to enter into my life in a way that I can't control. There's one last thing I want to talk about related to this, and I want to put this out there. As an empath, as I'm reading social media, because I read social media a lot. It's part of my job. It's part of my life. It's just been there for a very long time. It's not something that I really get away from very often. But what I don't understand, and I maybe I'll never understand this about social media, is that there are people who just literally have the ability or want to just place all of their negative energy into the world because they need some place to displace it. So they had a really bad experience with in a customer setting and they blast the company, or something bad happened in their day and there's a nail in their tire and they're tweeting a picture of it, or they had a bad interaction with someone and they're telling their entire timeline about it. And I understand and support the need to vent and to give support and help and love to other people. But I want you to understand what that does for someone like me, which is if you are someone who just needs to vent that energy into the void, I am the one who receives it by reading it. And that hurts me, especially when it's a constant bombardment of pain and anger and frustration and hatred and and it's despair. I mean, 2020 has been all those things and more. And I get it. I get the feeling of doing this to make yourself feel better. But if you're someone who does this every day and says negative things about other people every day, remember that energy and the people that follow you it's going into them. They are taking it. Whether or not they're like me and they absorb it like a sponge, they are still reading it and they're still processing that, and you have unshouldered your load and they have picked it up. Is that something that you want to do in your life or to be known for in your life? And I will tell you, I have a lot of people on my followers list, like especially on Twitter, who are muted because I just can't. I can't handle the constant barrage of negative energy or angry energy or just not. I mean, it's just it. If it's positive, I'm all out. Like, I'm all in for it. Like, please bring it. As long as it's not fake positive, I'm all in for it. If it's genuine positivity or constructive positivity, which I love the most, those are the things that I think are the most valuable in my timeline, and probably makes myself a bit of an echo chamber on my timeline. And I get that, but I have no qualms about muting them. I have no qualms about making sure that does not keep popping up and those feelings do not keep bombarding me. And situation could be, yes, I should just unfollow them. And there's some situations where I know that if I unfollow that person, I may cause some more drama that I don't need. So that's why mute becomes my friend. And I try to just deal with it rather than having some confrontation. But I have actually gotten a stronger feel about just not following someone anymore. I have done that more in the last couple of years. Just mainly just because as you get older, you just don't care anymore. This is kind of how it goes. So I think that's the thing I wanted to express about being an empath, and especially in a world of isolation and quarantine, where we're just spending a whole lot more time talking to people virtually and seeing what they're posting virtually because we're not in each other's presence anymore. It is something that's pretty difficult for someone like me. And I know that there's a lot of you out there who are also empaths, and I'm probably sure you're nodding at this right now. So thank you for listening to my experiences as an empath. I hope it was helpful for you. And that's going to do it for this episode. And this is my first one. I didn't know how it was going to be for solo episode, like a real solo episode. And I just talked for 45 minutes. So look at me. If you would like to nominate or suggest a guest or suggest a topic on this show that you'd like me to cover, you can reach me and the show in a few ways. You can reach me by email at personalexperiencepodcast@gmail.com. You can tweet me at JulesRPG with positive energy, please. Or you can tweet the show at its brand new home at Personal EXP Show. This show is available on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, Pocket Casts, Direct Feed, and on YouTube. Thank you so much for listening to the Personal Experience Podcast. Seek understanding. Feel empathy. Connect with one another. I'll see you next time.